My name's Jorge Quiñónez, and I'm coming to you. We drove up yesterday from Monterrey County, my wife and myself. Yeah, so I live in Salinas, and I've been collecting cactus for quite a while, about 10 years.
Well, Jorge, we usually do introduce our speakers. We just didn't get
Oh,
it together. So I will do a quick intro of you,
sure, go
which is to
ahead.
say you're a vendor of really interesting plants and one of the most knowledgeable people I know about in Northern California about plants that are weird, like especially cacti that are just unusual. And you also collect a lot of mesms, which is a shared interest between us.
Hmm.
And we've had many discussions about that. But probably the most interesting thing about you is that you're the program director for the Monterey Bay Area Cactus and Succulent Society, which is a sister club of ours. The last thing I wanted to say about you was that you're a frequent contributor to the ISI at the hunting, to the
Yeah,
succulent introduction. So
yes.
you've got a lot of things that other people don't have. So you're really an expert on some of these plants that just are unknown to other people. So with that, I'll introduce Jorge and let you get started.
Thank you, John. Thank you for the kind words. Yeah, I mean, I get a lot of times you get rare plants that you don't really want to sell them. You want to share them with people, and donating them to a botanical garden who will get them out there to all the people that really want them is usually the best way, rather than just trying to sell here and there. Anyways, so yeah, reintroduce myself. Yeah, so I have real strong interest in plants from South America. I've been in the hobby now for about 10 years. And recently I've gotten into succulent bromeliads. I actually had a presentation on that, but I heard you guys get a lot of presenters on the topic, plus it's the Bromeliad Society, so I'm not giving that talk. Anyway, I got a question for everybody. Can you grow cactus indoors? Okay, what about in the shade? Okay, yeah, there you go. Christmas cactus. What if you try to grow desert cactus in the shade? What happens? Yeah, it stretches. Yeah, it etiolates. Yeah, so that was something I confronted years ago when I first started, and that's how I really got into the epiphytic cacti. I want to grow the plants that I love indoors. What can I grow that belong to the cacti that would do well indoors? That's how I kind of started my journey. All right, I'm gonna keep on jumping ahead here. All right, some terms really quick. I know somebody asked me earlier when I was selling some of my plants, like what is epiphytic? Does it this count or that count? If it's an epiphyte or not. Some of the terms chromophyte, that really refers to any plant that grows on a steep cliff. So like an example of a chromophyte that's a cactus is like the monkey tail. Epiphyte, so Mr. Kimball was referring earlier to, that it can't be a parasite, so if it's like a mistletoe it'll be parasitic, right? But even though it's an epiphyte, but just a general epiphyte, it's not parasitizing another plant. So it's getting all its nutrients from water, the air, like I have there in the definition. Interesting, this is like a side note trivia. Like a couple hundred years ago when they were first starting to classify the cacti by their scientific names, they usually would have like one group name for like many different type of cacti that now are they maybe have 50 or 60, 100 different groups now, but they would group everything into Cereus. So they called the most common Ripsalis, Cereus was it Parasiticus. I just found that. Actually, I put this in here last night. Besides epiphytes, there's also lithophytes, or anything that grows on rocks. There's a lot of epiphytic cacti that grow on rocks, and you can classify them both ways. And then there's a xerophyte, which is any plant that doesn't really need a lot of water. Some examples of epiphytes, so kind of a little background. This is the one I saw walking. We were in the park here today, and I saw it growing just on one tree. Just really strange. It wasn't in all the other trees. In Monterey County, where we have lots of oaks, it's almost on every single tree. Anybody know what this is? Or what it? Yeah, no, it's not a tillandsia. It's not a moss. Lichen, yes, lichen. I looked this one up. I didn't know it's Ramalina what is it, menziesii? I probably didn't say it right. And this actually, since 2016, is the official state lichen of California. I think Gavin Newsom signed the order. It was interesting. Yeah, I thought it was, yeah, Spanish moss years ago, but I took a picture of that on when I was near Cal State Monterey Bay. It's all over the place, and this one's pretty common. This one is Spanish moss, so Tillandsia. Yeah, if I don't have a photo, then it's my picture. So this is, I took that one off, I think, of Wikipedia. I was at the Huntington several years back, and I was just looking through the different things they had in their greenhouse. They have like thousands. It's like one of the biggest collections of succulent plants on the West Coast. And I saw this, whoa, Euphorbia epiphyloides. Epiphyloides like epiphytic or like an epiphyte. And I thought, wow, I didn't know there were euphorbias that grow on trees. So it reminded me a lot of the rickrack cactus. And, part of the reason I included this slide, I was just kind of an introduction that, epiphytism is really rare. I think almost, I could be wrong, but at least my assessment is it's almost non-existent in other succulent family, at least the traditional ones, other succulent groups. There probably are exceptions. And let me see if I can click down. And the tag right, Euphorbia epiphyloides. Let me jump to the next page. And I was wrong. This one's actually this real obscure tree-like euphorbia that grows in these really isolated islands in the Indian Ocean, the Andaman Nicobar Islands. But that's how it looks. Even though it looks kind of like the form, it's kind of like you gotta having a cutting sometimes doesn't tell you how the plant will look when it fully grows out, right? It could look totally different. There's some pendant plants that look like cacti. We have Wernia. If I looked at that and I didn't know that was a stapeliad, I would say, oh, that looks kind of like some epiphytic cactus, like I don't know, Salinas. This is actually a cremnophyte, grows on cliffs in South Africa. It's a really cool looking flower. And then there's another one. This is Sinantium marnierianum. This from a distance looks like a Ripsalis, but typically they're usually browner. It's from Madagascar, and it's a lithophyte. And I think in habitat, it usually looks more browner, so more like a bunch of dead stems or leaves. Plays dead. Anyway, so I found, I started looking into other family groups of succulents that might have epiphytism, and it just isn't there. There's no Mesem family, I can't even say that. How do you say it? Somebody say it for me. Yeah, yeah. There's Alof group. There's none. So there's no epiphyte. Crassulas, at least within the African ones, I didn't see any. I think there might be some sedums that may grow on trees, but definitely no euphorbias. There's no coloncoes, cotyledons. These are all basically grow in the ground, and then Eclinias or Senecio. So interesting. I'll come back to this whole thing about why there aren't any epiphytes, what happened. It's an interesting story. And my talk is not about accidental epiphytes, epiphytic cacti. You'll get this sometimes where the bird will eat the fruit, then, jump on it. It'll go into another plant, and then it gives it the fertilizer, the boost, and then you get like mammillarias on this cycad. Thank you, Troy, for letting me use your picture. And then, what is that? Pontia growing on a palm tree. Okay, next. There's just some other pictures I found of it. These are so interesting. You think about the story. How did that cactus get on that tree? It's just, here's mammillaria of some type, and just before that, that's I don't know, Kinesiarius on a giant columnar cactus on the right. Really, my pointer. I think it's up here. All right, so intro. So there's over 2,000 species of cacti. About 10% of them are epiphytes, or one of the ways they grow is epiphytically. Cacti has a very long evolutionary history. It's all as old as 35 million years. And epiphytism has evolved 6 separate times over, just 4 tribes, that eventually made up 16 groupings or genera. So it's happened multiple times, where so it could be that one lineage was completely terrestrial, then all of a sudden one of its ancestors evolved epiphytism. So that's happened like 6 separate times. It's very interesting. And here's the basic, the tribes. It evolved in 4 different tribes. And it's kind of a side note. I mean, I don't know if people are familiar with convergent evolution. So like an example, flying animals have at least evolved 3 times, right? At least with vertebrates. You got reptiles like the pterosaurs, you got bats and mammals, and then flight also with other reptile group, the dinosaurs, right? Our current modern birds. All right, convergent evolution. So this basically is an outline of the different genera I'm going to be covering. So we're going to start with like the Hylocereae family that includes Epiphylium, the Hylocereus, which is now it's Salinas, so dragon fruit family. So there's several others. There's the second one, Limon-Bensoniae. So this is a real obscure Peruvian group of lithophytic, epiphytic cacti. The third one is the Rhipsalidae tribe that includes one of my favorites, Rhipsalis, including the holiday cacti and some similar groupings. And then the 3 oddballs, which are from the Echinocereae tribe, including most people haven't heard of the 3, the Demia, Strophocactus, and Pfeifera. Maybe the Pfeiferas you'll recognize when I go over them. All right, so Hylocereae tribe, 7 genera. We're going to start out with a Procactus. Oh, actually, I have a note here about Hylocereae. So this is a circular phylogenetic tree. This came out of an article I saw in March 2025. It had a reason I included it in the presentation. It had an interesting concept called the nomadic vine, where basically the plant will establish itself at the ground level, and then the seed sprouts, and then it starts growing on the tree. Eventually, it'll create roots which will attach itself to the tree, and then eventually maybe where it started in the ground, that part will get cut off or die or whatever, and then it's just living just strictly off the tree attached to it. According to the study, based on their research, the first 3 groupings, Porocactus, Salinas, and Weberocereus, are nomadic vines. They don't necessarily start in the tree. They start on the ground and then go up. I didn't know that. Anyway, so yeah, next slide. A Porocactus is pretty common. The one species you can buy at big box stores. I actually just bought a hanging pot of it a few days ago in Santa Cruz, because I'd lost mine. It's from the state of Hidalgo, Mexico. And in Oaxaca, it grows pretty high up. I mean, that's about 4,500 feet and as high as 6,000 feet. And then, I'm sorry, Martianus grows at that height, and it's a slightly thicker version than the Porocactus flagelliformis. All right, for next one. So there's a hybrid, and I had a couple. I think I sold them both. So they'll cross a Porocactus and Epiphyllum to get Porophyllum, and they're really nice. They have really nice flowers. They're a little bigger than the typical Porocactus. This is one I have at home. Not sure which one it is. This one is not in a Porocactus. I'll throw in occasional lookalikes just because sometimes it's interesting, right? You have the original and then you want to get something that looks similar to it. This is Camiaceres. This is what we would call like a peanut cactus. Luis Ramirez discovered this in 2004 in Argentina, and according to the article that I read, he called it an Porocactus, which it's not. Anyways, all right. Next genus is the Disocactus, and this includes 15 species. This one's basically pretty much Central American, probably more outside of Mexico than so like Costa Rica, El Salvador, Nicaragua. Cloud forest. Disocactus does really well for me in Salinas. It likes the cooler weather, kind of like the holiday cacti, the Christmas cactus. And even outside during the winter months. Anybody heard the term epicactus? Yeah, they've been around for probably since the mid-19th century. A lot of the epicactus are not epiphyllum. They're usually, they use disocactus or disocactus, and they cross it, and that's how you get a lot of the hybrids. The main attraction for people for epicactus is just the big flowers, not necessarily the foliage, but they're crosses with disocactus crenatus and phylanthoides. Uh, I get these mixed up still myself because I like this particular type of cactus. It's a disocactus, and it's the difference of one letter. So, don't get it mixed up. Disco, diso. Uh, all right, Disocactus salvadorensis is one that was recently described. This one gets really fat, really thick, even though it has slender stems. Anybody guess what the pollinator is of this particular cactus based on the flower? Bats, okay, could be bats, yeah. Hummingbirds. Yeah, these are diurnal flowers, so they bloom during the day. Yeah, I'm guessing they're hummingbirds. Yeah, hummingbirds. There's an old Salvador. And the next one, these are some of my own picks I took from home. This is Disocactus aclamii, I think from Costa Rica. And then this is Disocactus quetzaltecus. Next one is Disocactus orienticus. I like this one. It looks more like a ripsalis, but it gets these like really striking flowers. Red. This one took me several years to get to flower forming. And I guess Honduras to Nicaragua. And Disocactus orienticus I grow like outside pretty much all the time with some shade. Wanted to stop for a second. Any questions so far? No? Okay, I'll just keep on going then. There's the flower when it bloomed. Let's see here, next one. I had this like in a 3.5-inch pot for years. I mean, all right, we'll walk around the Huntington. I saw this, and this was from a German hybridizer, Rudolf Hessing, and just looks really strange. I don't even know if that's really a disocactus, but that's what he had on it. So I assume maybe he hybridizes a lot of disocactus in Germany. He'll come to California when they have the Epiphylium Society of America. The ESA has like a conference, Epicon, like Cactus Con or Comic Con. They'll have it every couple of years, and so I'll take him at his word. Maybe he had like some seed. I sent him an email like, where did this come from? But he never got back to me. Epiphyllum, this is the one that everybody knows about. There's 10 species. There's 1 or 2 in South America. So Mato Grosso, Brazil for Epiphyllum phyllanthus. These are typically all, except maybe one exception, are all night bloomers, fragrant. And anybody guess the pollinator for these? Yeah, moths and bats. I think more moths. I'm not sure if the bat. Anyways, we'll keep on going. They get really long. I've got some pics a little later in the next slide. 20 feet long. You'll have one stem just going on the tree and the branches. So yeah, they're really interesting. Some of these have these really giant leaves, maybe 2 feet, by 6 inches across. You need really huge, to get them to look really good, you need large pots for these. That's why I don't grow them too much, except for one exception. Here's one that they put on the ground, and I guess it didn't get, I'm not sure. I don't think this was a palm tree. It didn't go all the way up. I don't have the complete picture. Next one. So this picture, I got this one from Facebook. There are a lot of lookalikes or doppelgangers I had on the slide. These all have the same Ricky Rack fern leaf look to them, and they're easy to confuse. If I mix up the tags, sometimes you don't know what's what. So, and people usually when they buy plants, they want to have the right identification for them. But there's 4 different species from several different genera. These 3 are mixed up all the time, and even the experts get them confused. This purports to say the difference, like, oh, these are more far apart, so anyways, this is not necessarily true. I've seen clones. There's a lot of variability, like when you grow from seed, and if the one on the left it says it's Epiphyllum angulager, and then the one on the right to it is Weberoceras imitant, you might get if you grow from seed, ones that look the same as the other one. So yeah, you really make sure you get accurate information. Don't. And oh, and one more note: the second one from the right. This one is really difficult. You will never hardly see this one in cultivation. And I think the reason is because it doesn't like it really that cold. It's very touchy. Yeah, but anyways, my favorite one is probably Epiphylium chrysocardium. It's not necessarily because of the flower, but the foliage. This is the one I had the picture of in the advertisement for the talk. It will get huge and looks nice around year round. You know, a lot of the epiphyllum just are long, you know, their stems are leaf-like, and they'll bloom for several days. The flowers may look spectacular, but after that, they're just, you know, like giant leaves. This one looks interesting year round. I think it's a great indoor plant, and a lot of people will buy these from, you know, nurseries not knowing they're cacti. I just like how it looks. All right, next one, I included Epiphyllum pulmillum. This is the only day blooming diurnal species of Epiphyllum. Anybody know a different one? Okay, all right. Checked in. So the flower, typically I thought it was a little more pinkish, but the flower here is white. Actually, I had one back there, got sold already. Next one, they used to have this Kimnachia ramulosa. This was under Pseudoripsilus, but they did a study about, about 8 years ago, 2017, that once they analyzed the DNA, they ran it through the computer, crunched the numbers, and they found really it wasn't even related to it. So they had to create a whole nother genus of cactus, or they named after this LA I guess nurseryman, Myron Kimnack, who used to be the head of the Desert Botanical Garden at the Huntington, and they named it after him, so Kimnackia. An interesting thing about this is they used to have it under Pseudoripsilus. Pseudoripsilus is primarily like a Central American genus of cacti that have very limited areas where they grow, but this Kimnackia has a huge range, like in most of Central America through oh, it went out for a second, through northern South America. And compared to the other ones, it's not self-fertile. You know, you don't need another insect to pollinate. It'll just, if you grow this indoors where you get no pollinators, no insects, bees, or whatever, this will create fruit on every single area on the stems. So, I mean, that's part of the key of success, right? If you don't need a pollinator, you'll still have fruit. The birds will see the fruit and spread it out, you know, far and wide. And part of the characteristic for its popularity, if it'll blush red like an aloe, you give it a little stress. It gets kind of, grows a little on the fast side. So, I mean, if you want lower maintenance plants, I don't recommend it. Right? And this is Pseudoripsilus. Pseudoripsilus, the species in this genus really aren't that well distributed. And I think it just may be lack of seed, or that our temperatures are too hot, maybe to get too cold, or too hot, but it does like it warmer. I really struggle with epiphytic cacti from Costa Rica just because I can't have them outside year round. You know, like I'll show a slide of another Central American cactus, a Costa Rican species, and I left it out there for a few hours when it was like in the mid 30s. It started getting, damage from the cold. It gets orange. You know, I lost like half of the plant. So you want easier plants, lower maintenance. This is not one of them. This is a cool flower. My friend Ariel in Pango in Central America has like these little propeller-like flowers. I thought they were cool. All right, next one. The most popular, or actually there's an exception. The most popular of all the Pseudoripsilus is Amazonica. You'll see websites claiming, this is the only cactus with like a blue flower. It's sort of like purple bluish. Took this picture a couple years ago from one of my own plants. These flowers are not completely open. I don't know, I guess I needed maybe more light or more heat, but that gives you an idea how the flowers look. It's a pretty cool plant. It's out there, it's available. All right, next one, Salinas cereus. is an interesting genus. These are they get huge, they get giant. You'll see them growing on the sides of, houses here in the Bay Area. You get the dragon fruit from them, but they're really weedy. If you give them too much, eat too much water, they'll take over, part of your garden. I use them primarily for like grafting, for putting, another cactus on top of another to get, it's for the difficult species. That 2017 study merged Hylocereus into Salinas. Um, that was a surprise to me. Maybe not to everyone, because some of them do look similar, but I still use the old names. But you can still look up, the new name by Googling the old name if you can't remember. One lesson from this is that, maybe I should just read this one. The visual characteristics of a plant, including the way it looks or the type of flower, doesn't necessarily imply that there's an evolutionary relationship with other plants. And that happens all the time. And you see, what is it? A pterosaur, right? A reptile who flies. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's related to bats, right? They have a common characteristic, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're related by blood or by genetics. I was at the Huntington a couple of weeks ago, and I saw this way up in this, a conifer, a pine tree, and that must be like 30 feet up. And this is a Salinas undatus. I'm not sure if it's undatus, but I just put should have put species on there. But it's way high up. It looked happy. All right. So I'm going to do some of the Salinas series. They're pretty popular. Anthocyanus is the typical rickrack. I was reading this in Cactus Guy. This is a few years ago, actually like 21 years ago. The guy who runs it had made a comment, or somebody had made a comment in there, how to distinguish between two of the rickracks, the Salinas anthocyanus and Discocactus angulagare. They were saying that one is smooth and slippery, that's anthocyanus, while the other one, Discocactus angulagare, is glossy, but it's more sticky. There's more like friction. I tested it once. It seemed not more than that times, but it seemed to be legit when I had I had two different, I had a legit Salinas anthocyanus and a Discocactus angulagare. This comment did bear, I thought it was accurate, but I need to test it more before I'd say it's 100% foolproof way of distinguishing the two different species. The flowers on these are really cool. I love those flowers. I've gotten them maybe to bloom once. Anybody bloom this in their home? Yeah, yeah, it's nice. And then next one is Salinas Morellii. This is a little different. I included it because it's really thin, like pencil-like almost, but it'll get long. It's the smallest diameter one. I got this one from my friend in Mexico. It's native to Colima, Mexico. It looks like I just put giant spiny ripsalis. Those are actually the stems. Yeah, I guess the equivalent of a leaf, yeah. The stems. Yeah, with these, when it'll get like roots coming right off of it, like an aerial root. Have you ever seen that? Yeah, it means they want to attach or they're not getting enough water. All right, here's Salinas undatus. That sounds really strange. So you go out on the internet, any book, it will say Hylocereus undatus, but I thought I'd use the new name on there. These will get, they're the largest in diameter. They'll get, 3 inches, so really fat. Probably when you see the dragon trees at the bottom, they'll be that thick. These are originally native to the southern part of Central America and Mexico, and these are grown worldwide now. Vietnam, South America, probably Africa, and yeah, pitaya, love dragon fruit. And it's great. And anybody ever go to Home Depot, you'll see the moon cactus, the Gymnocalycium, right? Those like red, yellow, different type of globular cacti. They're usually grafted onto Salinas undatus, typically at Korea. Here's a variegated one that I have at home, and I've been trying to propagate this, and every time I cut a piece, a non-variegated piece comes off of it. I think, yeah, people have asked me for this, and I don't have any to share yet, so someday. All right. Salinas validus. This is another one. It's a real spiny one. Those are terrible spines. They'll break off, and then you got to dig in your skin. But I love this one because, so it's a night bloomer, also from southern Mexico. The flower's fragrant. It smells almost like chocolate. It's a really cool smell. The flower's nothing extraordinary to write home about, but you'll smell it like, that's cool. It's just unusual. a lot of the epithelium will have like this jasmine sort of, the queen of the night, the jasmine type flower smell, but this is chocolate. It's interesting. All right, next one, Weberocerius. This is a Costa Rican one, I believe. Froniungiarum, Froniungiarum. Anyways, and then what distinguishes them, like from a Salinas series, they have the bristly flowers, hairy flowers, bristly spines on the blooms. This is Webero imitans, and that's the one that looks like the one we just talked about, Anthayana, Salinas series Anthayana, sort of Disocactus anguliger, and the only reason I know is because I got it from the Huntington, so I'm going to trust them. They're like a library of plants. There's some cuttings of ones that didn't make it. This is Weberoceras trichophorus. It's a hairy one. Biolei, sort of like a ripsalis, but it gets these weird flowers that they look almost fake. I mean, like plastic flowers, but they're cool. Anybody seen a ripsalis flower? Well, I mean, we're going to get to that, but you don't even know when it blooms. They're dinky. Most of them have little tiny flowers, like a millimeter or two. You can't even see. At least the most common ones. But this is huge, comparatively speaking. And yeah, it doesn't like it cold. All right, next one, Lyman bensonia. This is named after a famous cactologist from the late 20th century. They named it after him. And this is a weird fact on this one. So they did like a DNA study of this, and I don't know, like 10 or 15 years ago, and they compared it. So they compared it to dozens of other type of cacti, right, that grow in the region, and they said that this one was most closely related to this weirdo, like tree-like columnar cactus called Calamanthium. And so it's like Calamanthium is a sister group to the Lyman bensonia. So they made their own grouping for the two and called it Lyman bensoniae. I don't know how you say that. Four vowels on there, but anyways, okay, Lyman bensoniae. So it's endemic to Peru. And I have one species. These are really hard to get in cultivation because I think a lot of times, somebody will say, oh, I want that one. It's like super rare. Why don't I ever see it? Or why, usually the reason you may not, even though there might be something cool about it, right? Like it's super rare, nobody has it, or there's a really cool flower to it, or there's just something really strange about it that attracts you. For this one, I think it's really, they have these really hard spines. I mean, no more spiny than some of the other ones, but it's very difficult to get it to bloom. But there's the flower, and so it grows in a lot of the Lyman bensonia species grow in the different valleys in Peru. It's a high altitude one, and this one took a number of years to get it to bloom. It was only when I started using bloom fertilizer that I actually got it to bloom. All right, we're going to get to my favorite one, Ripsalidae tribe. 5 genera, 5 groupings: Hadiora, Lepismium, Ripsalis, Ripsalidopsis, and Schlumbergera. First one is Hadiora. This is cylindrica. It grows, it's like an upright lithophyte. I think sometimes it grows on trees in epiphyte. Has little yellow flowers. And right, this genus is it's endemic to Brazil. There's 3 species. The next one, this is the most common one. This one grows, you see it almost for sale, every cactus sale, what's called the drunkard's dream, or the dancing bones cactus, and Siliconoides, and the last one, cylindrica. Some cactologists will say that's the same one, but I think but other cactologists say they're different species. And then some of these you'll see, this particular drunkard's dream, some you'll see with a lot of little bristles or hairs or spines, and that typically means that maybe they're grown more in exposure to sun, while the ones that are more green and spineless are more in the shade. Happens with a lot of cacti. The coolest one is, because of the flower, is Herminii. This one is really hard to grow in its own roots. You got to probably grow it from seed, and you can't grow this in a regular cactus mix. Very difficult. I mean, when I try to root these, I only root 1 in 5. I mean, it's interesting. This species, compared to the other 2, is self-fertile. I mean, you'll get fruit from every flower. You'll get a fruit. And I think the only way to really be successful consistently to get the new roots to grow them on sphagnum moss. So Sphagnum moss, if you're into cactus and succulents, cactus succulent mix, half, pumice, half, compost or potting soil. That doesn't work for this. This is super specialized. So yeah, if you want to try to cultivate this one, you really got to change your way of thinking how you cultivate the plant. That's not for everybody. I'm into the hobby because, I want to be lazy about my plants, not have to water them every day or, have to do special research on how to grow it. This is not for you if you're not into that. And then this one I had grafted on Salinas cereus, and I see it has like fruit on every stem. It's a few years old. Took for a while for it to grow out. Yeah, I donated, I had two of these. I donated one to the botanical garden. I kept one for myself. I'm going to keep on trying to see if I can find a better way to root them. Lepismium, this is really cool. This is a real common one, cruciforme. A little sunlight will get these blushing red, which is very attractive. And some clones will fruit more than others. I think some of these clones are self-fertile, some aren't. I'm not 100% sure, but it seems to be that way because I have at least one clone that gets fruit on every aerial, on every stem when I feed it. And others don't get any fruit. So that's interesting. Some Ripsalis and Schlumbergeras, some clones will be self-fertile, others aren't. So that genetic variety is like a survival mechanism or a way to propagate itself. I'm not so sure, but it's interesting. Oh yeah, and this is the spiral one. It'll. I think most of the time I'll have the spiral growth pattern, but a lot of other times it'll just be more like three ribs or four ribs. But when you can get it, you'll see pictures online or videos of people from Brazil having like this immaculate. I think the ones from Brazil look really cool. Every single stem is spiral, and it looks really impressive, like the one on the picture on the right. I included this slide. So I have two different clones. One has spines or hairs on each aerial, where the barrier flowers come out from, and one is hairless. And it's interesting. I got the information where they grow. One's from Sao Paulo state, and the other one's from Espírito Santo, so a different state in Brazil. I think I noticed the difference is like 400-mile difference. So it's what we would call like an ecotype, right? It grows in a different environment. Same species, but it grows in a different area, adapted to its particular necessities or needs. And then here's another one. This is a street shot, just somebody on the street or a nursery. See how every one of these has fruit on it? And I think that's a self-fertile one. And this one, that could be too, but I like those berries. They're not sweet. I've tasted them. Lepismium hulatianum, saw, it's like a saw, sort of. It's pretty cool, this one. And the flowers on these have a weird fragrance to them, but yeah, you try to smell it yourself, see what you think of it. Yeah, I mean, this one's cool. I mean, I just like the foliage on this, even if it's not in bloom. The flowers are really tiny, a few millimeters, but it just looks good all year. It looks different. Just not like a spaghetti cactus or whatever. All right, this is one particular form. This is This is the nominate form, so it's the species. This is Forma huyat. So Lepismium huyatianum, Forma huyatianum. There's another one, Regnellii, and I think the only difference is like the stigma. I think is reddish. So the center part will be reddish. All right. Ripsolidopsis, the Easter cactus or May cactus. This is Rosea. So this genus has two species. There's Rosea and then a large one. What's the name of it? The name's escaping, but it's a hybrid between the larger species and this smaller species, and that's what you see sold during Easter in all the big box stores and nurseries. So Ripsolidopsis hybrid Grasserii. All right, Ripsalis. So this is the largest genus of epiphytic cacti. There's más o menos 35 species, more or less. And in Brazil, they call them, I included this little trivia in here, cacto maracau, because it resembles spaghetti or noodles. Maracau in Portuguese is the word for pasta or macaroni, and it's a good name, spaghetti cactus. There's a map of distribution of it. So it's primarily grows along the coasts, the center of diversity. So the area in South America, it has the most number of species is just like the Rio de Janeiro, Sao Paulo area, where it had, I mean, there were like 16 species within like a 2,500 square kilometer range. And it's also one species, Ripsala spicifera. This is kind of an interesting fact that it's the only one that occurs naturally outside the Americas. It's become endemic to different continents. All right, so regarding that, Ripsala spicifera jumped the, well, actually, before I talk about that, so you'll get plants that'll jump from one locality to another locality. I thought I'd include some examples. You know, a couple of interesting ones are, there's Pitcairnea feliciana, it's a bromeliad. So there was a bromeliad that jumped from Brazil to Africa. There's only one species, and it grows there. You know, it grows really, you don't never see it. I mean, it's just such an, it's a place that's really inaccessible. I think it's like East Guinea, where it grows. There's the baobab, Australian baobab tree, how to get from Africa or Madagascar all the way to Africa, you know. So I think the prevailing theory is that it floated there, but bird dispersal, you know, maybe a bird took a seed, but I don't know. Is this, you know, Brian, is it a baobab big seed or small seed? So it probably floated or raft, you know. All right, so I think, you know, I don't see that a lot of this talked about or written about, but I think when Ripsala spicifera, I'm assuming it was bird dispersed. So bird, maybe it was a little closer together, the continents, it attached to a bird ate it, you know, and it arrived in Africa, and from there just evolved and spread. There was no competition because, I mean, it's all in a lot of parts of Africa. Yeah, maybe the fact that there wasn't any competitions why it's become so successful in Africa. And I got this map from this German book, and all the red areas is where Ripsalis is known to grow. I mean, that's a lot. It goes all the way even into Sri Lanka, you know, that island just south of India. I mean, you got all of Madagascar, the coast here, the coast there, supposedly the interior here, all of Madagascar, these islands of Seychelles and Sri Lanka. So it jumped. It's pretty cool for a plant. Next slide. So there's 6 subspecies of Ripsala spicifera, 3 in the Americas, and then 3 that made it to outside of the Americas, into Africa and the Indian Ocean. They classify the subspecies, you know, or I'm sorry, they've looked at the subspecies, what makes them different, and one thing that really makes them different is the number of chromosomes that each species has. So they'll go maybe from the Ripsala spicifera that's in Brazil is diploid, right? So it has 2 sets of chromosomes, and some of the ones like in Madagascar and Africa will have 8 sets of the chromosomes, octoploid. So the ones in Africa and Madagascar had 4 sets of chromosomes and 8 sets. You know, this is something you see in other groups of cacti, most notably Opuntia. And having anybody know why it would be advantage to have multiple sets of chromosomes? Anybody want to take a guess? Why would a Ripsalis need why does it need 8 sets instead of 2? You know, the original one, you know, its ancestor had 2, but now in Madagascar it has like 8. Any guesses? Well, when they get, you know, it's part of the evolutionary process, having multiple sets of chromosomes actually will give the plant, I mean, it's hard to do an analogy. It'd be like having more memory or bigger hard drive. You get more ability to change your form. You'll have larger fruits, larger stems, just different form to the plant by having more chromosomes. It's kind of the roughest approximation I can think of. So with more variability to the way you grow, you'll have an advantage to outcompete other plants in the new environment. Yeah. hmm Yeah, you can. I'm going to go. So I didn't really, in my presentation, I'm not talking about the ones from the Americas. I just kind of talking about the 3 that grow in the Indian Ocean and Africa because I thought they're more interesting. This is a horrida. This is what they call the mouse tail cactus. You'll see this. This is pretty common. It's a little spines, really hairy. So the three, this is the one I have in this picture is Horrida, then there's Mauritiana, and then subspecies Erythrocarpa. And that nothing to do with the cactus, just put Madagascar, lemur. Okay. All right, the Mauritiana. This one is interesting. The reason I had this book up here, I was looking through the field guide of plants of South Africa, right? There's a chapter of cactus in here. It has maybe about a dozen cacti, and every cactus has like the letter A, alien, invasive plant. The entry on this one doesn't actually have it. It's an endemic to, not endemic, yeah, it's a native to South Africa. So it's like the only cactus in South Africa that, primarily a lithophyte that grows on trees too. Oh, backwards. Here's an example I took out of iNaturalist growing on this like giant rock. Horrida is probably the easiest one to note. It has a lot of little like care-like spines. Here's a crested one that I got a few years ago. It's fairly common that it will crest. And you know, a big pot, you might have a couple stems that are starting to crest. I just bought one in a nursery not recently, and I think I saw a couple of different crests on a couple of stems. So this one kind of went here. I mean, got a lot of crested growth. Looks pretty cool. A lot of times you see like the brain cactus for sale. It's basically a crest like this. And then there's the Rhipsalis spicifera subspecies Erythrocarpa. And I got this picture about a month ago from a botanist who was doing research in Tanzania on snake plants, sansevierias. And you know, the difference between this maybe and the one that grows maybe in Brazil or in Central America is the fruits aren't reddish. I think the fruits are white on the one that grows here in the Americas, and this one's reddish. So it evolved that. Yeah, go ahead. I didn't pay attention to Ripsaw. This is probably the one that grew up, Mauritaniana. It's the one from South Africa. Yeah, because you get the reddish growth on the stems. Yeah, that's where like Ferrari. There's a cultivar name for it, but that's Mauritiana. It's yeah, right here, this one, Mauritiana, right there. Okay. Oh no, the name's down. Oh, it was Horrida if you saw it. That was Horrida. Yeah, but maybe not as a close up. It right here. Yeah, you can Google it. I mean, on this case right here, it looks like it's been baked by the sun. Maybe you can't really. Some of the iNaturalist pictures are real live. That's how they are in nature. They'll look a little different than compared to a nursery. But if you type in Mauritiana, I'm sure you'll get a lot of other pictures. You'll see it has those reddish stems when it grows with new growth. Let me jump ahead. How are we doing? Oh wow, I'm about 70% done. All right, this is Linderbergiana. I saw this picture in Cactus World. So that's like the British Cactus Succulent Society journal, and I thought that is so cool. They had these little monkeys hanging on there like Tarzan, just like their vines. And these are really small monkeys. Yeah, so this was at the Rio de Janeiro Botanical Garden, and I got permission from the author to republish it. I mean, my presentation, but they're just cool. The interesting about Linderbergiana, this is like the most common. You walk down the street in Rio de Janeiro, and you'll see these in the public parks. They'll just grow on the trees along the walkways. Very common, most common Rhipsalis in Rio. And then Flagelliformis, this one, Flagelliformis was the most recently described Rhipsalis species. It was 2014. And I got a cutting from a friend, I think in Europe, like 7 or 8 years ago. And it's bristly. This one is not self-fertile, so I couldn't get any seeds. So I'm just growing it from cuttings. They named it the famous British cactologist David Hunt, he's been dead for a few years. He's the one that suggested naming it after giving it the species name Flagelliformis because it reminded him of a Porocactus flagelliformis. I don't see the resemblance personally. Yeah, so anyways, keep on going. Ripsalis nevis armondi, subspecies Megalantha. This is probably the fattest of all the pencil or spaghetti types. Um, yeah, but check out the flowers on these. This is like super cool. Giant flower. Yeah, I think somebody, Otter has one over there. It hasn't bloomed for him yet. But these flowers, that's like 3.5, what, 3 centimeters? I mean, look at that. I was going to say otter. This is what happens after they bloom. The flower dries out, and then this area right here it's like a crater. It looks very unattractive after they bloom. They look cool when they're as fat as your finger, but in the flower. But anyways, keep on going. Not sure why it's not that popular. Okay. Next is this is probably one of the more popular ones online, and people will charge a lot of money for a stem of this Paradoxa. The chain, really call it the chain cactus. And then another one, a Ripsella. I like this one. Ripsalis clavata always has these branching stems. They just like one will divide into three, then that will divide into three, and then it just keeps on going. Yeah. There's Ripsalis pachyptera. This one, some varieties of these get huge. I mean, they get as big as like an epiphyllum. I mean, the stems are giant, and the flowers they're a little bigger than some of the other species. But all right, then there's like a group of lithophytic Ripsalis, which it's interesting, right? So like 90% of them that grow primarily on trees. And some of these you'll hardly ever. I mean, it'll be like an accident if you see them growing on a tree. You're always going to find them on the Inselbergs in Brazil. The giant rock, Sugarloaf Mountains. In Brazil, they're just one giant rock, and that's where you get like Tillandsias and other cacti. This is a Ripsalis cereoides. I had this growing next to my Nyctus cereus serpentinus. This is an older picture. I cut it down since then, but it's grown there happily for years outdoors in the ground. I mean, this is not really an attractive one, but more of a curiosity. But it's cool that you see, it's supposed to be epiphytic, but I'm growing it in the ground. There's at least 2 species, maybe 3. They're strictly lithophytes. Occasionally they might grow in a tree. And then the other one is triangularis. This is a large, it looks almost like a miniature Hylos Salinas, and critically endangered. And it's like only known from one municipal park in the Rio de Janeiro area. I think it's just less than 10 square kilometers. That's cool that this columnar or this cactus, this lane on its side is Coleo cephalocereus flamensis, not very common in cultivation. There's Ripsalis spinescens. I saw this one at the Huntington. This doesn't get big. It has small, like fat stems in there. It looks kind of like Horrida in a way, but it's more upright. And they found this one, according to the tag, it's on a boulder in this canyon in Sao Paulo. Then I just put 3, these are 3 lithophytes side by side, and I had 1 or 2 of these in the back. I sold them already. Cereoides cylindrica, and then there's Flocosa subspecies pulvinigera. This is another lookalike. This is a bromeliad from Brazil, and when you get it it has long stems, looks just like a Ripsalis. The only thing is these striking, these flowers look like little orange pineapples, and supposedly the fruit's edible, but I haven't tried it. It grows in areas where Ripsalis grows in the Atlantic rainforest. You guys can hear me okay? Yeah, okay, good. Just wasn't sure. And then there's Schlumbergera, so what is this, Thanksgiving or Christmas cactus. So this is the species in this genus occurs so only in Brazil, and the ones you'll see at Walmart, Home Depot, the big box stores or supermarkets are primarily hybrids that have maybe a long history of being crossed with each other. I don't think they really care. Sometimes you'll see names on them, with the name. And yeah, actually, you probably see it more often than not. You'll see a name like Thor or the different, the name that the hybridizer gave it, but a lot of times you won't. And because they've been hybridized for so long, or just, yeah. So yeah, these are strictly epiphytes. These are not terrestrials, no. Probably, yeah. No, they will. Especially So there's a couple of species that are the common ones, like the truncata, but the other ones are very difficult. You'll see what I mean. So this map kind of shows you, I think that's just Rio de Janeiro state, or maybe an adjacent state. There's Kautowski. Yeah, I'll show you in a sec. So the smaller Schlumbergera, like Lutea, subspecies Lutea, this one's very difficult to grow on its own roots. I can't get this to grow on its own. It has to be grafted. It'll fall apart. This probably would be successful like on sphagnum moss. And then there's subspecies Bradii. This is probably the stems on these are several millimeters wide, and I did get to grow this on its own roots, but it's very difficult. It's easier than the one on the left, the subspecies Lutea. But if you want to propagate them and play around with trying to root them, you probably need to grow them grafted, so you'll have like a supply of them because they're very difficult to get. Nowadays, I've seen more people starting to sell them grafted on eBay, so they're out there. The Schlumbergera puntioides, so this is Lichen opuntia, prickly pear. This has the spines are just the little hairs. They're not, they won't hurt you. I mean, they just prick you a little bit. I like this one. I mean, it does look like a prickly pear. If you grow this on its own roots, I mean, when it's grafted, it's upright. The one that I have on the Myrtilla cactus on the left, I mean, that does look like an opuntia. I grafted that, and like maybe 8 or 9 months later, I got that from the Myrtilla cactus. Let's see here. There's Schlumbergera microspherica. This is a little more cylindrical than the one that was just right before the last, and the one in the last slide. And you see the little Christmas cactus flowers. My friend Andrea. And then the last one, we're going to be going over the Chinoceria tribe, Demia, Pfeiffer, and Strophocactus. And this group, Pfeiffer, is probably the one that you'll see for sale. All right, start with Demia. There's, I think, 4 or 5 species now? Okay, 4, 2 of which actually have been described in the last few years. I put the most common one, Demia testudo. This is the dog, I think the common name, they call it a dogtail cactus. And I mean, this one will wrap itself around rocks and trees, and it's pretty spiny, night bloomer. There's Pfeiffer. 3 of these are really common. One especially common. I threw this map in here because I thought it was interesting. If you look at the map, so so this kind of follows the Andes Mountains, so in the valleys or the areas adjacent to the mountains. The 3 most common species, this orange one's Boliviana, and then the other one was Monacantha, the blue one. Those are the 2 most frequently ones that you see. The other ones that have like little blips, like a dot here, a dot there, and over there, will grow in a very limited area. And those have, the reason those are the rarest, even though they're just as attractive as the ones that are widespread, is because they have very specific needs, like they need more humidity or they're sensitive to temperature changes. And they're just not out there. Not moving. Oh, I got the wrong button. Okay. Let's see here. Jumping ahead. So Assunta potensis. This is the one that I think is one of the top 2 most attractive ones. Assunta potensis. It has these reddish orange flowers, and it gets them in droves when you fertilize. I've lost this multiple times, and I think I was reading or hearing about this last year that it needs a lot of more moisture. If you don't give it the right moisture, you'll start getting dry rot on the stems, and then you can't stop it. It just starts falling apart, and you get brown. It starts drying out from the tip of the stems all the way back up. So it's really easy to lose it. I have some cuttings of this, and I'm probably going to keep, if I have it in a pot, I'm going to keep it with the drain pan with some water at the bottom. So there'll always be a little bit of water there all the time, hoping that'll keep it going. And then there's Pfeiffer ianthole. This is interesting. It's mainly Argentinian, and this is actually sweet. I mean, I think it's the only among the small epiphytic cacti, it's the only, besides the dragon fruit one, it has a sweet fruit. But the only downside to the other, very spiny. Man, they'll break off. The fruits aren't that bad though. Next one. And Miyagawa, this is one that's very limited area, valley, I think, and has one of the larger flowers. Very, very beautiful. Yeah. been around since the 70s. It is, for me in Salinas, it is sensitive to the cold, so I usually have to keep it covered or bring it indoors to my garage. I have like a glass garage door so they get sunlight. And then the last genus is Strophocactus. They thought they had the Demia in Strophocactus, and they separated out. And this is an interesting genus. There's 3 species of cacti in this genus. Only one grows on trees most of the time, is epiphytic, Strophocactus whittii. And I have a picture here. This one's a terrestrial species. It grows in Brazil, Brasiliensis. And these cactus need a lot higher temperatures. I mean, I got a cutting, I think, of the 3rd species that's terrestrial, and I forget the name off the top of my head, but that one, it hasn't done anything for me because I'm not giving it the heat. And I gave up trying to grow the epiphytic one. This is a really cool one, though. It wraps itself around the tree, on the Amazon. It's like the only cactus where the fruit floats on water. So, I mean, that's how it propagates on the Amazon. It'll just, a friend of mine in Europe tested it. It actually floats. It grows near rivers, so it's like the nomadic vine. The seed will sow on, side the river, and it just starts going up the tree. And eventually, maybe the part of that started the roots at the base of the tree will just, die off, and then just completely epiphytic. I tried growing it at home, but it just didn't work out. I mean, I had it hanging there in my restroom. It really needed. My plan was to get like a PVC, wrap it with like coir, but it just needs so much space. It belongs more in a botanical garden. You need to live somewhere where it's really hot and warm. So too high maintenance for me. I got enough with all the little small Schlumberger cacti. And then so just some general cultivation advice. I use a mix mainly that's a little more organic than I would for my desert cacti. And you just put more, some more sifted potting soil or compost. And then, my comments apply. I live on the coast. If you live more inland, you might be different for you. Maybe water more often. Typically if you water less often, where environment's dry, you're going to use more compost, more organic matter, right? So it retains the water. And this is all stuff everybody probably knows. And if you water more frequently, or it rains frequently, use more grit, pumice, so it drains. Like Brian was saying. And they do like to be watered more frequently than terrestrials. You don't want them to completely go bone dry, because if that happens, they'll start becoming brittle, and they'll still get stems falling off. I water about once a week my plants indoors. That keeps them usually happy. And like maybe in the mid 60s indoors. And there's different ways of rooting them. Like for the Ripsalis, the way I found where I get the most success is I usually root them in fine perlite, and like small sized perlite, maybe with some water, keeping them in a pan of water, maybe about an inch. And typically they'll root after several weeks, and then I'll pot them up in my regular mix. Other people just keep them in the regular epiphytic mix and just don't water for several weeks. Maybe just lightly apply some, spray bottle, a little bit of moisture. When I do that, typically they usually rot on me and then they fall apart. But alternative methods, this is my friend in Utah. He put them on a bed of sphagnum moss, and a lot of these are the smaller, difficult species. So he had let's see, that's a regular Schlumberger. This is, I think, a Nepontioides hybrid, and here's this Paradoxa. These are common ones over here, but he gets roots that way, and they don't dry out because the sphagnum moss retains moisture, but not so much where they'll rot. I've done my method rather than putting them in a plastic sealed container with sphagnum mosses. I'll do the sandwich bag, and after several weeks, I'll take them out and then put them in a little bit of water, maybe about a quarter of the way down, and they'll get roots fairly quickly in dihydrogen oxide. Yeah, so H2O. All right. So yeah, here I have them. I rooted a bunch of these little small small Schlumberger, the difficult ones, and this is a couple of years back. I need to do this again, and I think everything after about half a year, I put them into 2-inch pots after they were well rooted and grown out in these 1-inch plugs. I mean, you don't want to wait to the point where the roots get super long, because when you root in water compared to rooting in soil, it's completely different. So as soon as you see the roots, you want to put them immediately into your little potting mix. Um, if you do it when the roots are longer, yeah, you're not going to succeed. And so I did grafting, the little Hadiora herminii, the one that has like the really cute, the violet flowers. They're self-fertile. Like, I put this on Salinas, and I think a few months later it just started growing out. And that's the one that it was like, it got really big and it's overhanging now. So it's very, grafting is really good if you want a lot of material to work with. I grew a lot of my smaller species indoors. I think about half of them. I was using these towel rat poles or whatever with these, I guess these plastic cups. They grow great on the side in the restroom, right? They say don't put pills in the restroom because the moisture is going to kill them, but put epiphytic plants and they'll succeed. And yeah, some older pics. Looks cleaner than it does now. And this is my living room a few years back too. This hanging from the rafters. You can buy all the stuff at IKEA, pretty straightforward. I mean, you can do multiples. And this is Succulent Gardens in Castroville. Anybody been there? Yeah, that's inside their barn area. It's pretty cool. It has like a rickrack with Ripsalis in it. And then, all right, if you want more information, I got some places here. So there's a lot of good websites, ripsalis.com. There's the epiphylium.org, which is the Epiphylium Society of America. There's Schellenbergera.net. They have like everything you ever want to know, encyclopedic wise, with the Schellenbergera. There's a European Union, ripsalis.eu. It's similar to ripsalis.com, just a little cleaner. There's YouTube channels, Epiphytic Cacti. This lady in, I think it's Minnesota. She has like hours and hours of videos about talking about, oh, this is the rarest Ripsalis. You can learn a lot. I mean, I learned a lot, and she's really obsessed with epiphytic cacti, but very educational. And there's cactus information. A friend of mine in Holland has a lot of information about propagation. I learned a lot of how to propagate the difficult species from him. His name's Ruud Troper. And then there's also lots of Facebook groups that you can use, Ripsalis collectors. There's EPIC, which is a German epiphytic cactus society. They also have a newsletter at epic.org. I've been using a lot of the AI, like you could take a picture. I mean, well, maybe that's not a good idea for rips. They all look pretty similar. But if you have quite general questions, AI gives you sometimes a lot of good feedback. But the forums on these Ripsalis groups in Facebook, you can actually get a response from a real person who has experience. Is probably better. And you can find cuttings at our club sales, trading with friends. There's always online options. Sometimes you'll see them for sale at big box stores, but not very often. I'll have occasionally cuttings. I have a lot of these species, and they get too big sometimes. You can contact me. Some people that help me. Thank you to them. And here's my contact information. If you have any questions, you can always email me, send me a message. And all right, do you guys have any questions? Yeah.